Hey everybody, Aaron Knoll here, and welcome to the latest episode of Movie Battleground. We are continuing on with round one of our tournament, and today we have an exciting match from two players here. No bullshitting, let's just get right to it. First up, he enters the tournament with a record of 2-1 with one knockout. His last match was an unfortunate but close loss to Jeremy Hastings, but he's back here to fight through the tournament and get his shot. Isaac Horvat. Isaac, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready to bounce back from the loss. Well fought loss, but all good things to my opponent there. But I'm ready to bounce back and show that I still am a dominant fighter here.
Most definitely. And today, his opponent, he is the newest addition to the Movie Battleground admin and hosting team. He made his debut as a host previously in one of the matches of the tournament, Medivh versus Manning. But he returns today as a competitor with a record of 1-1. Jeremy Hastings. Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I know I'm coming in as a pretty massive underdog. That's why I spared the Dan Merle, New Merle short, just to try to get some aura, some pizzazz. But ultimately, I felt pretty good about my last match against Henry Sanchez, even though it was in a loss. And he gave me a pretty big vote of confidence that I feel like that I can hang. Whether or not I can win, that remains to be seen, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Definitely. All right. And before we get into it, just a quick rule explanation. If anyone has not seen a match, we're going to have 4 rounds of battle. The questions have been pre-written and the competitors have their answers. Normally, the competitors do know each other's answers. However, per the competitors' requests, they do not know each other's answers, with the exception of one question where we had to reveal it for choosing reasons. But for the most part, they are fighting blind today compared to normal episodes where competitors do have a chance to prepare counter-arguments. Each round is going to be 5 minutes. However, each competitor gets a 1-minute extension that they can use at any point in the match. They must call this 1-minute extension before the argument has begun, meaning the opening statements for the argument have begun, and the time limit will be extended from 5 minutes to 6 minutes. If each player chooses to use that extension on the same question, we extend that one question out to 7 minutes, with the rest obviously being 5 minutes. If the main game ends with a score of 3-1 or 2-2, we move on to a max of 3 speed round questions. These questions will run for 30 seconds and then a rebuttal of 15 seconds. And then if it reaches the point where the score is 3-3 and we go to the final question, the final one will be 30 seconds, 20 seconds, and then 10 seconds to speak. If the main game ends with a score of 4-0, that is a knockout victory for the winning competitor. And because this is a tournament, obviously, the losing competitor will not play into the tournament. The winning competitor will move on to the next round. That was the best I could possibly do on that. Anyways, do the competitors have any questions? All right. Then if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and get into the first question. And that question is, as you guys are well aware of by now, Disney is going back through every animated film they've ever possibly made and making it again because money runs the world and they're going to make money. So the question that we asked today is, which animated Disney movie not currently in active production should be remade into a live-action version? The reason I said active production specifically is because there are a lot of movies that have been rumored or in some type of pre-development, but we wanted to kind of open it up a little bit and let any answer that is not currently actively being remade for sure have an opportunity to be spoken about. However, both these competitors have picked movies that have not had talks yet, but I think they could bring some really good, interesting pitches and ideas for why they should be remade. Because statistically he is the higher ranked player, Isaac is going to go first for the opening statements on this question. Isaac, go ahead.
All right. The movie that I picked to be remade into a live action is a cinematic movie, and I'm not sure how much detail I should have gone into with the director, actor, whatever. I went in full bar to really flesh out this idea, and my movie is one of my favorite animated movies of all time, Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the well-known story of the lovely or lovable hunchback of Notre Dame, Quasimodo, who is the bell ringer there, and the relationship he has with the Count Frollo and a gypsy girl and a soldier and several other characters that I'll get into later. But it's a well-known story. It's a brilliant movie, and I want to see it as a live-action movie.
All right, and Jeremy, go ahead with your opening arguments.
That's a really good choice. I actually wouldn't have thought about that one, but when I started thinking about this question, I started piecing all the things in my head that would make a good movie in 2018. First off, you have to think about a Disney character that is still loved and cared about even today. You think about lessons and morals that sadly still need to be taught today in our society, and ultimately a world or a culture that is still fascinating and can be explored. And the more I thought about it, I think the perfect movie to be readapted into live action that fits all those pieces would be Lilo and Stitch. Now, Lilo and Stitch is obviously not the first movie many people would think, but when you talk about what this movie represented to many people that grew up like me, that saw it the first time, it told a great story about family and love and caring, and it doesn't matter what you are, who you are, what you look like. As long as someone cares and loves you, then it's important about family and all that. So I think a movie like this that can be redone today in this day and age, obviously Stitch is still one of the most recognizable and loved characters in Disney ever. I think it would be a great time to readapt this movie into live action.
All right, guys, and with that, we're going to go ahead and move into the open argument part of the argument. Oh, fuck it. Anyways, you guys are going to have 5 minutes on the clock to talk about whatever you guys want in relation to the movie. And I'm done. I'm muting my mic. 5 minutes on the clock when you guys begin speaking.
You're doing great. Oh. All right, Lilo and Stitch, man, that's a really interesting point, and that's an interesting pick because I was looking over the other options that I might be fighting today, and I looked at that movie and I thought, there is no way he picks that movie. There's just no way. It's and you got me. You got me. I'm not gonna lie. You surprised me there. I didn't really prepare for this, and part of the reason is because I just thought it's too recent. It's too ridiculous. I look at Lilo Stitch, and that's a perfect animated movie, and I just don't see how that translates to live action at all. I think it would be unfilmable almost, and I really I don't know. I don't know how you make that movie. I love the themes. I love the characters, but I don't see how you make that movie.
You can kind of make the same case for all these movies are going to be readapting. I mean, you wouldn't think a movie like Beauty and the Beast could work as a live action movie. They kind of made that work to the best extent. They're going to remake Aladdin. I mean, how are you going to make a live action genie in this day and age? Will Smith, he's going to do the best he can, but ultimately, I think animation and live action is kind of irrelevant. Disney's kind of already shown that they're going to do these things one way or another. I think ultimately, when it comes down to Lilo and Stitch, obviously it played to all generations. The first movie did. It talked about love and family, like I talked about. It had all the Elvis Presley references, which catered to the older generation, the old folk, if you will. And again, it told the good morals and the life lessons. It was kind of like my generation's version of E.T., kind of the alien that came to a planet and catered to a young girl and all that. So it bared a resemblance of another movie that people before us enjoyed. So it's kind of a reason why the movie worked so well. And obviously, there's many other. I think the story is really easily adaptable. Hunchback of Notre Dame, I'm not really sure. And you talked about, my movie is kind of hard to replicate. I think the same could kind of be made for yours. When you talk about remaking the Gargoyles and that, I'm not really sure how that would work per se. Quasimodo, that would be kind of hard to readapt.
I'll say it plain. I wouldn't have the gargoyles in it. And as for Hunchback, the Hunchback has been.
You killed an entire part of what makes that movie what it is.
No, that's the part of the movie that makes it bad. And here's the thing: there's a formula to these Disney movies, right? To these Disney movies that they make into remakes. Okay, now financially, sure, but as far as quality, like I think the thing that people are missing is that Disney. The best movies that Disney have made in live action are animated movies that weren't great. They weren't classics. Cinderella and Jungle Book, they're both good, but they have flaws. They're not perfect animated movies. They were better.
Beauty and the Beast. That was the Best Picture nomination.
No, yeah, and it was Beauty and the Beast, yes, the animated movie is fantastic, but that's my point, is that when you have a fantastic animated movie and you make it into a live action movie, it will always be compared to that in worse ways. In my opinion, the new Beauty and the Beast is garbage because you had a perfect animated movie. Lilo and Stitch is too good to remake. Hunchback of Notre Dame, the gargoyles, that has a problem. Some of the happiness of Hunchback is the problem of that movie. And Hunchback has been made in the 30s. It was made in the 50s, but it's been out of mind for a long time. So there's no problem in making the Hunchback. The point is improving upon the Disney version. And I'll just get into really quickly. It's a cinematic movie. I want Guillermo del Toro to direct it as a gothic artist. He would have an incredible look to this movie. I cast the whole thing. I have Jesse Plemons as Quasimodo, Zendaya as Esmeralda, Chris Hemsworth as Captain Phoebus, Christopher Plummer as Frollo, Orlando Bloom as Clopin, Willem Hurt as the Archdeacon, and Guillermo del Toro directing a cinematic movie. This is what Disney, the live action movies, have been missing a little bit. You bring in an artist like Jon Favreau or Guillermo del Toro, and you take an old animated movie that has its flaws, it's good, and you improve upon it. Lilo and Stitch, it's good as animated movie. Leave it there.
But I guess with your cast, I guess you're looking for the Oscar nominations, because that's like a who's who of Oscar nominations there.
Why not?
I think you said the point yourself, though. The fact that the movie Hunchback of Notre Dame is so forgotten in many people's mind is kind of the problem with that movie. Whereas Lilo and Stitch, I mean, they've had 3 spin-off movies. They've done 3 spin-off animated series. So it's now more in people's minds than ever before. So I think making a live action movie of it now would actually generate more buzz and more excitement than the first. I think the problem with the first movie is, one, the fact that it bears so much resemblance to E.T., but the other fact that it was so much different than other movies that Disney was doing that it didn't really attract a core audience until later on. And then once it blew up big, and Stitch is now one of the most recognizable Disney characters.
Okay, and time? All right, and that is going to be time on the first round. You guys are going to get your closing arguments. Isaac, you were up first. Go ahead.
Okay. Lilo and Stitch, you're right. It is the more popular movie. That's because it's the more recent movie, and it's more focused for kids. It's a kids movie. Making the kids movie animated, making it a live action, I want something different. Quasimodo and the Story of the Hunchback is the most adult animated movie maybe ever made, ever. It is the themes that it's explored of racism and sexual frustration and religious extremism. These are incredible themes to have in a kids movie, and it needs to be live action. This movie needs to be live action to properly give the respect that those themes deserve. To not make it about gargoyles singing a stupid song and sending pigeons like the witch in the Wizard of Oz. This movie needs respect. It needs a good director like Guillermo del Toro. It needs to have a gothic atmosphere and really dig into these characters, a classic story that would affect people. And you're right, I do want to go for the Oscar because the Hunchback of Notre Dame is an Oscar-worthy story. It is. It's a classic novel. It's a classic story. The themes, the message is relevant. You talked about lessons and morals in your opening argument. The lessons in Lilo and Stitch are the same lessons from Hunchback, except simplified and dumbed down. It's family. Yes, Hunchback is family and so much more. Like I said before, the racism, the shunning of people that are different. There's so many layers to this movie, and that's why this movie deserves to be a live action more so than Lilo and Stitch.
All right, and Jeremy, you're up next with the closings. Go ahead.
I mean, you kept talking about the fact that, your movie is so much longer before my movie came out. I'm pretty sure your movie only came out about 5 years before mine. Lilo and Stitch was like 2002. I think Hunchback was like 97, 96 at earliest. So it's not like it was like leaps and bounds before my movie came out. And you kind of talked about, all the movies that came before it. A lot of people would say that the worst rendition of the Hunchback of Notre Dame is the animated version. So to kind of replicate that version, I would agree that's probably not the brightest choice. And like I said, you said take out the gargoyles. For better or worse, that was a part of that movie that made it what it is. So if they're going to readapt the live action version of Disney's version of Hunchback of Notre Dame, you have to keep that characters, or you've destroyed the entire essence of that movie. As far as my movie, like you said, it all has the same relevance of Hunchback, only it's done in a more loving, caring, funny way. You can bring back the same composer that did the first one, Alan Silvestri. I think he's still been around. Avengers, wink, wink. And you just bring back all the relevant. And the other thing that everybody always talks about in this day and age is we are still waiting for the next core of non-white actors and actresses, to be in a lead role. Well, Lilo and Stitch, there's your perfect movie right there. You can bring in a whole new culture like Moana did. It set up this whole world of the Polynesian Hawaiian people, and it's perfectly made. You have all the cast there. You can build up the next Millie Bobby Brown for Lilo, and all the pieces are in place to set up everything that society wants to see in a good movie with Lilo and Stitch. All the pieces are there to make it work.
All right, guys, great arguments there. Just a quick couple fact checks. Talking about real quick at the end with the release dates. The Hunchback of Notre Dame was released in 1996, and Stitch was released in 2002. So there's about 6 years between them. 6 years between them. So not that much of a time gap, not that big of a time gap. And then talking about the reception of Hunchback of Notre Dame, I couldn't find great comparisons between the Disney one and the live action ones, the comparisons that I had. But just to use general reference score, Rotten Tomatoes has it at a 73% based on 51 reviews. So it's mixed reviews more than anything, but it's still positive for the most part. In terms of the arguments here, for the most part, you guys were pretty equal through and through. Isaac in the pitch talked about how the movie could improve over an average animated movie, which is what they seem to have been doing. That is the precedent that they've kind of set for the most part. He talked about Guillermo del Toro directing, and he talked about the cast you could have in the movie and how you could really go for something with this. Jeremy talked more about the story and the themes that come with the movie and how great that could be for a readaptation. And when the idea was brought up that it may not look great in live action, Disney has done a good job at adapting things that probably shouldn't work and making it work in some way with precedent with the live action readaptations, so they could make it work with this one. But what won the round for me on this one was Isaac's closing, where he talked about the necessity of the themes with the movie and how he can, with his movie specifically, it handles more complicated versions of the theme in movies like Lilo and Stitch, but could be better done and have more justice done in a live action movie. And that's the point that won it for me, because I don't think it was necessarily countered great in Jeremy's closing. So that's what's going to give the first point of this match to Isaac. He's going to go up 1-0 after the first round.
Good argument, man.
All right, guys, and with that, we're going to move on to the second round here. And the question is, what is the best ensemble comedy film this week, or at this point last week, I guess? Yeah, well, actually at time of recording last week. We had a Game Night release, which was for the first time in a long time a positively reviewed ensemble comedy. So we thought, let's ask the question, what is the best one? And Jeremy, you were up first for opening arguments on this question. Isaac is raising his hand. Isaac?
I want to extend this argument.
All right, so Isaac is choosing to extend this argument out by a minute. So once we get into the main round, it's going to be a 6-minute fight. But like I said, Jeremy, you do have opening arguments first, so go ahead.
The best comedy ensemble, a.k.a. the race to find out who was going to pick Tropic Thunder first, because that's, I think everybody could pinpoint that was probably what Isaac and myself would probably take. And for obvious reason, I mean, it's a who's who of cast, not just for a comedy per se, but just overall movie in general. I mean, so many different genres of cast, from Ben Stiller, Jack Black, Robert Downey Jr., Tom Cruise, Bill Hader, Matthew McConaughey, Tobey Maguire's in there as a cameo. I mean, it's just a who's who of lists that it just overall, other than big extravaganza movies, there's not a more solid cast that you could put for a movie like this that was intended to be a complete parody, as Russell Howe would tell me in my first movie Battleground match. But at least I won that argument. But yeah, Tropic Thunder, I think hands down from bottom to top had the best overall cast, bar none.
All right, and Isaac, go ahead with your opening.
All right. For my pick for the best ensemble comedy movie, and just to clarify, we're talking. The question was best ensemble comedy film, right? Not cast.
Yes, best ensemble comedy film.
Okay. So I was gonna say, as a cast, Tropic Thunder is unimpeachable. I agree. But as a comedy, I would pick my film Airplane over Tropic Thunder. Airplane is a classic comedy film. Tells the great story about Ted, a veteran air pilot who is suffering from PTSD, trying to win back his girlfriend Elaine while on a flight from Los Angeles to Chicago. And as as the cast goes, it is stacked. You just won't know them because we're not of this time. I do know Robert Stack from the Untouchables and of course Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but you and Leslie Nielsen. So yeah, okay, maybe we do know these people. Peter Graves, Lloyd Bridges, Julie Haggerty, and Robert Hayes round out this cast, and it's just an incredible broad comedy that is funny from start to finish.
All right, and like we said earlier, because Isaac used his time extension on this round, you guys are going to have 6 minutes to argue. Time starts when one of you begins speaking.
I mean, Airplane is a great movie, and an ensemble is, bar none, very, very solid. But you talk about, the performances. I mean, Leslie Nielsen, that's by far, I think, his best performance. I mean, he's pretty much known that entire movie for just saying the same thing over and over again. Don't call me Shirley, or just want to wish you good luck. We're all counting on you. When you look at the ensemble and the cast, that everything that Tropic Thunder did, it brought up performances in Ben Stiller that we didn't think he still had anymore. I mean, he was doing all these stupid Meet the Parent, Meet the Fockers movies. He came back in style with a kind of movie, and directing also, these characters that on paper didn't really make sense, in a movie that didn't really look like it makes sense at first. But when you sat down and actually watched it, it was actually a great movie. And, all these characters and all these actors that came in playing these roles that you wouldn't expect them to play. I mean, you never would have thought Tom Cruise would come in as a supporting role, and it absolutely boosted it. Robert Downey Jr. came in and did a performance that we never thought was imaginable. Actually got him an Oscar nomination, oddly enough, which is kind of weird considering the character that he actually played. And just the ensemble and this cast that was brought together and all the parts that they played worked perfectly for this movie that ultimately didn't really make much sense, but ultimately you could say the same thing about Airplane too. It's just a parody in and of itself with a story that doesn't really make sense. So oddly enough, I think other than Leslie Nielsen, I think the most prominent actor in your movie is a basketball player, which, is kind of weird in that per se. You're talking about all his basketball accolades and all that. So to say that it's, the best ensemble cast when one of your characters is talking about his real life status and all that, breaking the fourth wall and all that mess, to me, it doesn't really work, because at least my movie per se was still actually telling a story on the movie instead of just doing fourth wall humor.
Fourth wall humor, like I'm a dude disguised as a dude playing another dude. Yes, you're right. Nobody imagined Robert Downey Jr. playing that character because he was in blackface. Nobody should have imagined Robert Downey Jr. in blackface. This movie, okay, like I was trying to like be reserved. As for the ensemble thing, the ensemble hit you keep saying, yes, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is in there and he makes references to the thing, and everybody knows Leslie Nielsen. But I'm saying, as people in 2018, we might not know Peter Graves and Lloyd Bridges and Robert Stack, but they were huge actors at the time. This is a true ensemble comedy. But let's talk about the film, because that's what we're talking about. You say neither of these movies make sense. You just admitted that. And I agree. The point is, my movie isn't trying to make sense. It's a spoof movie. It's a surrealist experiment, or the surrealist humor in this movie. It's going for the crazy slapstick stuff. The stuff that happens in the air traffic control center and the airplane are just so out there that you don't ever want it to make sense. Tropic Thunder thinks it makes sense, but it becomes the movie that it's trying to parody. It's trying to parody these self-serious actors and Hollywood in general, not realizing, you just said it, he got nominated for an Oscar. It became the thing that it was parodying. It's one joke and it's gimmicky. The gimmick is, hey, Tom Cruise in makeup, Robert Downey Jr. in makeup. Hey, let's blow things up. It's one joke, one note, uninteresting movie.
Oh, I completely disagree about that. If you're going to say that, I mean, pretty much every Ben Stiller comedy that he's done, you could say the exact same thing about. When you talk about
that maybe he doesn't make good movies.
Well, case whatever. When you talk about ensembles, though, I mean, not only does my movie span so many different genres, but it also spanned so many different depths of decades. It spanned with Nick Nolte from the 80s, Tom Cruise from the 80s, Matthew McConaughey from the 90s. There's so much span of talent that you would never have imagined had done it. I mean, you said yourself, it's a stupid movie, yet Ben Stiller was still able to get this allure of talent to agree to it. Tobey Maguire, who had completely disappeared off the face of the earth after Spider-Man 3, came back and took part in a one-minute cameo.
He was in Brothers. An incredible movie. He was in Brothers in like 2005. Tobey Maguire was still on the map. He didn't disappear.
Yes, Tropic Thunder. It was 2008. 3 years. You disappeared.
3 years is disappearing? They made the movie right after the Step Brothers came out. My movie is accessible. It's brilliant. It's witty. The dialogue is sharp. The slapstick is hilarious. The surrealist humor is funny. It's accessible. Everybody understands it because it's there. It's right in front of you. Tropic Thunder is so niche. If you're not a film nerd, that movie is dumb. And the first time I saw it, I didn't like it because I wasn't as into film. The more I got into film and award shows, I like it better. For non-film nerds, that movie is stupid. And the ending is terrible.
You can say the same thing with all those slapstick comedies that Leslie Nielsen was doing back in the day. You can say the same thing about Naked Gun. You can say the same thing about all those movies about Airplane.
What, that they're hilarious? Yes, I was actually having a hard time deciding between which one is better than Tropic Thunder. I couldn't decide, and I finally landed on Airplane because of how funny it is. And I'm not alone in this. It's been voted #1 funniest comedy in an Empire poll in 2012. It's consistently been rated as one of the best ensemble comedies over Tropic Thunder occasionally. In almost every poll you'll find it in. It's been called the funniest comedy of all time over things like Monty Python.
Yeah, well, me personally, I don't even think it's Leslie Nielsen's best comedy. I still think Naked Gun 1 is a little bit better, but that's just my opinion. I mean, it's a great ensemble. Great comedy. It's a great ensemble comedy cast. Mine is the best ensemble overall cast.
It's not about the cast; it's about the film. And my film.
Okay, and that is time. That is time on the fight. You guys are going to get chances for closing arguments. Jeremy, you're up first. Go ahead.
I mean, he keeps bringing up, ensemble is about the film. Well, he keeps trying to bring down my film, but the fact is, my film, for what it was a great story that talked about the parody of what action films became and what we kind of talked down to when it came to like the Die Hards and the Lethal Weapons. We all started making fun of it after about 3 or 4, different movies. The fact that they were able to make a movie like that and it still worked and it got more buzz for being a parody of itself is, phenomenal in its own right. Airplane, as you said, was a movie that was not trying to take itself seriously, and as itself as a movie kind of hurts itself in that because it's not trying to take itself seriously. It's trying to be one slapstick gag after another slapstick gag. Okay, does that make good Three Stooges gags? Yes, but for an overall movie, it hurts when it comes to overall movie ensemble. For me, Tropic Thunder had the best cast, best performances in a comedy cast with all these things because you wouldn't expect these actors to do any of those things, and they did them flawlessly, and that's why it got the merit that it deserved. Whether it took people multiple times to figure it out or not is, in and of itself, but Tropic Thunder was a movie that was trying to prove a point, and that is sometimes we take movies a little bit too seriously, and that sometimes if you just sit back and try to pay attention to a movie of what it's trying to present to you, it's actually a movie that can actually work. And Tropic Thunder proved that far and away.
All right, and Isaac, go ahead with closings.
You just said if we don't take ourselves too seriously, we can step back and maybe enjoy the film. After you criticized my film for not taking itself seriously enough and being one slapstick gag after another. I'm confused, honestly, as to what your argument is. Is my movie too serious or not serious enough? I don't know. As for Tropic Thunder, I didn't get a chance to get around to this, but since I kind of have a way in, you did say nobody expected these actors to do this. That's true because it's offensive, okay? And I really wanted to get to this in the main argument. That's why I extended it. Didn't get a chance to. This probably won't count, but I have to talk about it because it's important. And that's the R word. It was used over 15 times in this movie. This movie caused protest because of its use, because of the character Simple Jack. And you can say it's just satire, and you can say it's mocking how actors use these roles to get awards, right? And it mocks Sean Penn in I Am Sam for doing that. When in reality, I Am Sam, he was nominated for that role. Honestly, he lost to Denzel, which, like, obviously he's going to lose to Denzel. But the movie itself was written by writers who researched the issues facing adults with intellectual disabilities, and cast two actors with disabilities for representation. And Tropic Thunder just mocks that movie like it's unimportant. They use the R word in descriptions that aren't satire. They justify its use, and it's disgusting. My sister works with the mentally handicapped. I know so many of them, and I'm not saying that and any personal beliefs here, but I'm saying the movie itself is offensive in its portrayal of that. It is offensive, and it caused an uproar then, and it should have. Besides that aspect of it, you do still have a white character playing someone in blackface. You can satirize how whitewashing is a thing, but you can't make it not a serious issue. Some things shouldn't be laughed at.
All right, and with that, another great fight, guys. Just a couple quick fact checks. Again, because you guys were talking about the success of the movie and the critical response. Again, it's not the end-all, be-all of everything, but just to run by some quick numbers. Rotten Tomatoes on 235 reviews. Tropic Thunder has an 82% on 58 reviews. Airplane has a 97%. So obviously there's a big deficit in how many people have reviewed it, but Airplane does have the higher score there. Also, just because for a quick minute this interested me, I looked up Tobey Maguire's acting credits post Spider-Man. He actually kind of has disappeared. Just for reference, Spider-Man 3 was released in 2007. Tropic Thunder was released in 2008. Brothers was released after Spider-Man 3 in 2009. But then since then, he was in The Details in 2011. The Great Gatsby and Labor Day in 2013, Pawn Sacrifice in 2014, and The Boss Baby in 2017.
Wow. Can I just say Pawn Sacrifice is an amazing movie and everyone should watch it? Pawn Sacrifice is great.
It is, but that's weird. He hasn't actually acted in a film in almost 5 years now. That's weird. But I just found that interesting. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about this argument. Obviously what Isaac said at the end does have a big impact. However, I can't take that too much just because Jeremy didn't obviously get a chance to respond to it because of when it was brought up. But that does make a big read that the movie does do things that can be read and were read at the time as offensive towards certain groups. And if anyone was offended by anything in the movie, we don't endorse that. Okay. But talking about the rest of the argument, both of you guys brought forward great points about the movie. And both of you kind of had similar knockbacks against your movies. You guys both brought out the fact that neither of your stories make sense, but they're both parodies in some way, and you guys both said that, so you can get away with the story not making as much sense. Both of you talked about how it kind of has one gag that it may fall back on. With Tropic Thunder, it's the kind of references to Hollywood. There's some fourth wall humor in Airplane as well that Jeremy mentioned. Jeremy also mentioned that Airplane was very similar to other Leslie Nielsen movies. Isaac talked about how Tropic Thunder tries to be a parody, but it also tries to be a legitimate movie, and it kind of falls in on itself because of that. But in terms of dissing each other, you guys were pretty equal there. And in terms of the actual arguments defending your movie, I think I heard a little bit more from Jeremy defending Tropic Thunder than I did from Isaac. Obviously, both of you guys talked about the ensembles that come with the film, and I don't think it can be denied, even though one is more modern than the other. Both of these bring great ensembles for the time of their release. However, I think I did hear just a little bit more from Jeremy, so because of that, I'm going to give him the point on this round. But once again, a really close fight from both of you. So, we are moving on to question number 3 here. And once again, we're kind of diving back into the animated realm. Which animated standalone movie most deserves a sequel? All right, and we are going to go ahead and start with Isaac on this one. Which animated standalone movie most deserves a sequel? Isaac, go ahead with your opening arguments.
Treasure Planet. Cut and dried. There it is. That movie deserves a sequel more than any other animated movie ever. As soon as I read this question, I knew exactly what my answer would be. Treasure Planet is a Disney movie, lesser known from the early 2000s, where it adapts Treasure Island in space. It's pirates in space fighting for treasure. It's beautifully animated. They did a revolutionary thing where they put 2D animation over 3D computer animation, and it looks more unique than any animated movie ever made. It's truly a sight to behold. And the story itself is good. It's a classic. Treasure Island is a classic story, but they adapt it very well here, and they set up a world where there are other stories and there are other adventures to be had. And because of box office failure, they never got to tell those stories. So this movie, I need to see more of this world. This movie deserves another sequel.
All right, and Jeremy, go ahead with your opening.
This question was actually kind of tough because the more I started thinking about movies, the more I realized that a lot of the movies I wanted to pick actually had sequels, so it kind of made it a little bit difficult to actually do this question. But so I ended up going with something a little bit more recent that I knew didn't have a sequel, even though I think a sequel is probably evident. And I went with 2016's Zootopia. And the reason why I picked this, obviously I kind of hinted at when I picked Lilo and Stitch in the first round, the messages and the morals that this story told, I think were even more powerful than Lilo and Stitch, and were some of the most powerful morals and lessons that were taught in any animated film. You talked about prejudice and stereotypes, and we find out, and they're telling the story about how no matter who we are, what we think we are, in a way, we've all done something that we're probably not proud of when it comes to stereotyping somebody or something as being wrong, even if we're the ones in the wrong. And to me, again, obviously the reason why that movie was so successful was because it hit such a note and hit such a chord of something that still needs to be told about today when it comes to stereotyping and prejudice and all of that. Also, the other reason was the fact that the movie was just so great. The world that it set up was absolutely phenomenal. The chemistry that all the characters had, all these characters that were brought together that wouldn't really make sense on paper, they meshed so well. The chemistry worked so well that as soon as I walked into the theater when I saw that movie, I immediately wanted to see a sequel, and it bummed me that I was probably going to have to wait 3 or 4 years before I got one. And when it came to the world that it set up, all these 12 different genres of world that I think in the first movie they only explored, I want to say 7. So there's about 5, maybe 6 more worlds that they could explore, which to me makes it a pure example for a sequel, because it's some of the stuff that we want to see while at the same time bringing up stuff that we still want to see. So I think Zootopia is a great movie that deserves a sequel.
All right, guys, good opening statements. And with that, we're going to move on to the open argument section of the round. As always, you guys have 5 minutes to argue it. Time starts when one of you begins speaking.
Just finishing my note. I mean, you can go, though. I'm just writing.
I'll give the floor to you. You can cut that out.
All right. Zootopia is a fantastic movie. It actually, I'm trying to remember what year that came out, but I think it definitely was my number 1 movie of the first half of the year. I think it was my number 1 movie the entire year, or at least in my top 2 or 3. It is
I did pause the clock just to fact check quick because I had it up. 2016 was the year of release.
26. So I was right about some.
Okay. Yeah, it's easily one of the best movies, period, not just animated movies of that year. I absolutely agree with you. Um, I don't know if it's getting a sequel. And I know that's not the question, but you said at the beginning that this is probably going to happen. I don't know if it's going to get a sequel, and the reason I don't know if it's going to get a sequel is because it's the very argument I'm about to make. Is it doesn't deserve a sequel because I think they're stuck right now as to what to do now. And I think that's the question. Where do you go? You said you have environments to explore. That's true, but what's the story? Is it the same lesson again about acceptance and diversity and representation and racism? Is it the same lesson taught again in new environments? Is it a cop movie again? I don't know. I think we saw great characters have great development and end at a really great point there at the end of the movie. And I think one of the reasons that you haven't heard anything about Zootopia 2 is because where do you go now? My movie clearly set up a new adventure, and it actually was announced at the time of release that we are getting a sequel, and then because of financial problems, it didn't happen. They had Willem Dafoe set up as voicing the villain in the sequel, and then it fell through. So when it comes to questions of deserve, I, I think your movie is stuck. My movie had started and then got shut down. So in terms of deserve a sequel, I think mine's clearly more deserving.
I kind of disagree with you saying that they kind of were stuck, because I think they were clearly setting up something at some point in that movie that they were going to advance something. I mean, movies like Rush Hour, you wouldn't have thought would have ever got a sequel because, they came together as one. So how are you going to make another sequel? They made 2 more sequels after that. As soon as you bring the team together, you can always make more movies. Hollywood has proven that they can do that easily. You talked about how your movie deserves a sequel. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that or not, because I'm pretty sure Treasure Planet Rotten Tomatoes was like 70%. So kind of like Hunchback, was kind of divisive among critics. I don't hear fans clamoring for a Treasure Planet sequel. My movie, 97%, I believe, on Rotten Tomatoes, made over $1 billion worldwide. So the market is there to do it. It made the right messages. It told the right things, where we all have limitations. We all make mistakes. We all can relate to movies like that, which means that it doesn't matter if it's kind of the same movie again. As long as you have a movie that tells those morals and that story, you can make a movie anything like that. Where Treasure Planet, yeah, it was a great concept the first time, but I could pose the same question to you. How do you go from there? How do you do something where you go bigger and better without having an Independence Day resurgence, or then just becomes a complete cluster in the end? Zootopia, you can have the same style of movie and it still work. Obviously, there's been many sequels that Disney/Pixar have done, where additional sequels that kind of tell the same story can still work and still be embraced and still be beloved, and oh, by the way, still make a ton of money at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many things that you just said right there that my mind is melting over. Um, the first thing I'll take on is the critics and the box office and the fans clamoring. First off, Treasure Island has gained a cult following over the years, and this movie isn't the best reviewed that should get a sequel, or the most popular, or whatever. It's what deserves a sequel. And in terms of, you literally just said it doesn't matter if it's the same movie as long as it's teaching the same lesson. Yes, it does. It matters if it's the same movie because it needs to be a better movie. As for where do I go in my movie, you said at the beginning you have another couple environments to explore. I have a few galaxies. This is a Treasure Planet where we explore galaxies. Jim Hawkins at the end of the movie got accepted into the Starfleet Academy, which is where the next movie was going to pick up, where he was in the Starfleet Academy, and the villain, voiced by Willem Dafoe, was going to free these prisoners on this prison, and Jim was going to try to stop that, and that was I'm not sure where else it was supposed to go there, because it never happened, because it should have, but it should have. The other thing that should have or could be done in the sequel is that in the first movie, fatherhood is a huge part, the missing father, and how Long John Silver kind of steps into that role because his dad abandoned him, Jim, as a child. You could bring that father into it as maybe one of the prisoners that the villain is freeing. Bring something new, bring a new family dynamic, add something, explore new things. I'm sorry, but Zootopia, I'm still hearing it's the same movie regurgitated. I don't want a regurgitated sequel to color the brilliance that was the original.
You're talking about doing the same thing. Well, Treasure Planet is basically Treasure Island. I mean, I would basically, the Muppets did, Treasure Island better than Treasure Planet was, but that's another debate for another time.
That is time on the round. Isaac is up first for closing, so Isaac, go ahead when ready.
Yeah, I'll admit, this is clearly an adaptation of Treasure Island. I'm not denying that. It's a new spin on it, though, and the sequel could take it into something different because Treasure Planet has been done. Take it somewhere new. Now we have the established world. We have Treasure Island. We have the established world, but we also have thousands of other worlds and stories to explore now. It deserves a sequel. It's not about, is there a crowd for this? Is there an audience for this? Did it make enough money? Is the reviews good? It's about what movie deserves, artistically speaking, what movie deserves a sequel. And this is a movie that people had vision for, the sequel. They had a story planned. These people were ready to go, and they couldn't. That is tragic from an artistic point of view. Right now, Zootopia artistically is, what do we do with it now? It was successful, so we've got to make more because we need more money. But they don't know what to do because they did everything perfect the first time. Don't make some rehashed, repeat, rinse and repeat, and color the brilliance that was that first one. Don't do that. If that's the question, don't do that. It doesn't deserve that. Treasure Planet deserves a sequel. The sequel that it never got, that it was supposed to get, and it never got.
All right, and Jeremy, go ahead for closing.
I think the main problem when it comes to a Treasure Planet is because there are so many other movies that out there that take place in space. Obviously, your Star Wars, your Star Trek, your Guardians, and all that stuff, that it just completely trumps anything that Treasure Planet would try to do. And obviously, you brought up the fact, it's just, an imitation of Treasure Island, which to me, I'm actually wondering if that would really have even qualified for standalone film, because I would never even have thought about that. But when it comes to overall movie, I think my movie was overall better, as you alluded to. You said it was one of the best movies that came out that year. Made all the money in the world, told great morals, great lessons, great chemistry between characters, and all this stuff. Everything just worked to make a perfect movie. Now, you say that you shouldn't make sequels of perfect movies. Well, if that was the case, then we would never have had, Godfather Part 2, because Godfather was such a great, wonderful movie. You don't need to use that every single time. If you have something that's out there that can work as a movie, not necessarily just to make money, then you should absolutely do a movie like that when it's still telling lessons that, as I said, still need to be taught to this day, sadly.
All right, and once again, great arguments, guys. Really, really good back and forth on that one. I enjoyed that argument there. Just to run over some quick... Sorry?
I agree. I like that fight.
Okay. Just to run over some quick facts here on both movies. The box office was brought up. And normally, like I say, the numbers that people generally find online are just base production budget and base box office. In order to get more real numbers, you have to account for, on production, how much marketing costs, and on box office, how much theaters are pulling. But just looking at the base box office and production budget for Treasure Planet, it cost $140 million to make, and it made $109.6 million. So without even doing extra estimates, the movie was a box office failure for Disney. When moving over to Zootopia, the film's production budget was $150 million, and its box office was $1.024 billion. So pre-estimates, it was an insane success for Disney in terms of box office. In terms of critical success, Treasure Planet has a 69% rating on Rotten Tomatoes based on 147 reviews. Zootopia has a 98% based on 256 reviews. However, it should be noted, Zootopia did win Best Animated Feature the year it was released. Treasure Planet was nominated for Best Animated Feature in 2002, so that does say something. And then, just because both these sequels have had it in terms of prior sequel talk, Isaac did give a lot of the pitch, but just to kind of re-enter it, the idea for the sequel of Treasure Planet 2 was Jim and a new love interest named Kate, who is a classmate at the Royal Interstellar Academy, would team up with Long John Silver to stop the villainous Ironbeard, voiced by Willem Dafoe, from freeing the inmates of the Botany Bay prison asteroid. That was the plot of the film that they had set up. However, the sequel was canceled when Treasure Planet disappointed at the box office, obviously. However, There were quotes from Thomas Schumacher, who was the at-time president of Walt Disney Feature Animation. His quotes kind of mentioned the idea that this sequel would have been direct-to-video followed by some kind of a TV spin-off, as was the quota at the time for a lot of their Disney animated feature releases. However, the film did reach far enough production that they'd hired in-house Disney animated director June Falkenstein to direct, and in-house screenwriter, oh God, how do I pronounce this one? Evan Spiliotopoulos. It's Greek. I apologize. Who was an in-house animated Disney writer at the time. He wrote The Jungle Book 2 and Lion King 1.5, and then later went on to write, real movies like The Huntsman, Winter's War, and The Beauty and the Beast remake. So they did actually get far enough where they had a cast set, they had a writer and director set. So I cannot confirm whether or not this would have been an animated in-theater feature or this was going to be direct-to-DVD, but they did get far enough in terms of that. When it comes to Zootopia, the furthest that it got was directors Byron Howard and Rich Moore said that they were in talks about a Zootopia sequel in June of 2016. That same month, lead actress Jennifer Goodwin said that she would come back to voice her character in the sequel. However, that's about as far as it's gotten, although there is a possibility of a Zootopia sequel, as pretty much every Disney animated feature post-Frozen has had some kind of sequel talk, as it seems they're more interested in franchising their stuff now than they were back in the day, or at least franchising theatrically than they were back in the day. So in terms of arguments, I think both of you guys, this was probably the best one of the match so far. You guys did a really great job of both defending and pitching your sequels, as well as hitting back against the other person's sequel. However, where it came down to me was the fact that, and Isaac did hit on this, Jeremy was more or less saying you can make the same movie because it made money, it'll work again. And Isaac did hit that against him as a negative within his argument and gave enough backing support on it as to why this was a negative and not a positive in Jeremy's position. Whereas obviously it helps that Isaac had a story that was pre-written and made public in terms of the development of the sequel, but he also did give his own original idea that could be included within the sequel. He talked about how you can expand in terms of adding a new story and expanding on the universe, not just in terms of maybe recycling the same themes and idea of a story, but expanding to the different parts of the Zootopia universe. You guys can see where this was a really, really close argument, as they kind of had the same points. It was just a matter of how they pitched and said them. And because of that, Isaac is going to take the point on this one, and he is going to go up 2-1 in terms of the match. All right, guys, and with that, we are heading into the fourth round, and we are asking the question, which supporting Avengers character deserves a more leading role within the ensemble for Avengers Infinity War? So just to kind of break down the question for you guys and understand what this means, we're not saying pitch me why Falcon should be the lead of Avengers Infinity War, because I don't honestly think there's any way in hell Falcon as Falcon. Now, if you make Anthony Mackie Captain America, that's a different thing, but Falcon as Falcon will probably never lead a movie. But the question is saying, tell me why this character, who has previously been a part of the ensemble of the MCU in previous movies, and there were characters and ideas that were rejected, so I was being a little more specific on what counts, but tell me why this previously overall supporting character should get more of a spotlight within the argument. And the other thing that I'm going to preface is I don't know how much you guys are going to rely on this, but this does seem to be something that does come up in certain fights, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it here. Whatever your opinion, and I'm not saying that this is because any character is controversial, I'm just throwing it out there. Whatever characters are picked, because the competitors don't know, so I don't want to reveal it yet, the argument of that character shouldn't have been allowed is not a legitimate argument. It's something that people have tried to do in the past. If it was allowed past the judges, which is myself and whoever else is hosting a match in that case, then the argument is valid. You can try and argue on that if you want, but it's not going to be counted towards any points within your match to try and win.
Who made that argument before, Aaron? Who would have made that argument before?
Honestly, I'm not even. Have you made that argument before?
Yes. Yeah, Tyler
Okay,
Perry.
yeah.
Tyler
Oh,
Perry.
right. I forgot about that one. I wasn't even thinking about you. I had other matches in mind where I was thinking like, I had other matches in mind where I was thinking like, you're trying to argue that,
Yeah.
All right. But no, that's fair. You did try and argue that Tyler Perry shouldn't.
I did. I got that point.
You did argue it. Fucking Medea won a movie Battleground. All right. Jeremy's looking at us like, what the fuck is wrong with these guys? Why Medea?
Medea is better than Gone Girl. In fact, Medea's
yeah.
family.
This is why we can never just take answers from movie Battleground and pull it out of context, because we'd have bullshit like Medea's big happy family is better than Gone Girl.
Man, I love
Which it totally is. Totally is. All right. Jeremy, you were up first for opening arguments. Just so, because we're on the last question, I'll put it out there. Jeremy, you have not used your time extension yet. Did you want to use it or keep this round to 5 minutes?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. And so, Jeremy, go ahead with your opening argument when ready.
Okay, so my supporting character that I think should have a more leading role in the ensemble of Infinity War, I picked Scarlet Witch. And the reason why I did is because in terms of the Avengers, obviously when you have a character like Thanos, who is, this great Titan god who looks unbeatable and unstoppable, obviously a character that needs to take Thanos down needs to be, a very powerful mutant hero in their own rights. And Scarlet Witch is kind of that character that has been portrayed to be a character that is powerful enough to give Thanos a run for his money. Whether or not he actually or she actually could would remain to be seen. But other than that, there's a lot of other reasons why she could be a good leading role in Infinity War. Obviously, with everything that's happening with Vision, as we've been shown what's going to happen in the trailers, obviously with everything they teased in Civil War, kind of makes sense that she would become a more leading protagonist in Infinity War. However, they would betray all of that. But yeah, I think Scarlet Witch is primed for a more definitive role in Infinity War based on all those things that have been presented to us in Civil War and in the trailer so far.
All right, and Isaac, go ahead.
My pick for character that deserves a more leading role, and man, all right, is Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier himself, or spoilers for Black Panther, White Wolf, perhaps. He deserves a more leading role in the future of Marvel. One reason is just simple. Sebastian Stan is a great actor, and I think he can carry his own movie pretty easily. He was incredible in I, Tonya. Also, his character is fascinating. He and this is just conjecture, but it's time that we're going to start losing some Avengers. We're going to start losing some primary characters. And Bucky Barnes is primed to take over for them. He's primed to be a good replacement. He's primed to be a good leading character going forward and taking up the mantle of some of these other characters, which I'll get into in the main fight.
All right, and with that, guys, we're going to go into the final main fight of the match. 5 minutes on the clock when one of you begins speaking.
I think with Winter Soldier, you talked about, he's primed for more movies down the road, but the question is, more prime role for Infinity War. And when it comes to Infinity War, I really don't know how much of a role he can actually play. Obviously, he's not going to be any match for Thanos. They kind of tracked all the story for Winter Soldier that they possibly could from Civil War and Winter Soldier. It's like, where do you go with that character from here? Pretty much everything that they need to address has been addressed in one facet or another. Scarlet Witch is still kind of an unknown. We're still not really sure of everything that she can do and is capable of doing. There's obviously some things that she can possibly do with Vision that can potentially give us some more leadway of what she can do and what she's capable of. But Bucky Barnes, I do agree, interesting character for future movies. Infinity War, I'm not quite sure what you can possibly do because you've already got Cap there. We don't know what Cap's going to do. We don't know what Black Panther's going to do. He just seems like, from what I saw in the trailers, he's just there to be there. He's just there to be another character for this 73 shit-tillion ensemble cast that they're going to do for Infinity War. I'm not entirely sure what role he would play in this movie. Future movies, I agree with you. Future movies, yes. Infinity War, I'm not entirely sure about.
You brought up Scarlet Witch in the terms that she could stand up to Thanos possibly with her powers, and we don't know about that, and we're not sure about that. That's true. I don't know. She might be able to fight Thanos, and that's interesting. But honestly, I don't care about her. I don't care about her. She does nothing about Scarlet Witch interests me at all, and I don't care honestly about them fighting Thanos. I don't care about this CGI battle that they're inevitably going to have, where she does this and some red things go up, and he's like, and like, I don't care about that. I care about characters. You say everything's been explored from Winter Soldier and Civil War. It's not. There's a clear arc for Bucky Barnes, starting with Captain America: The First Avenger through Civil War. Where does it go in Infinity War? Yeah, that is a great question. He does have a role in Infinity War, and the role is, how does he come back into play? How does Tony accept that he's alive and that he's healed now and that he can fight? How does he fit into the grand scheme of things? If Captain America, which I think is highly possible, if he gets killed fighting Thanos, how does Bucky Barnes, his childhood friend, handle that? I care about Bucky Barnes, the character, and his relationship with these people. It would be a poignant moment to see Tony and him have a real moment where character development actually happens and growth happens, and it's not just quips and it's not just CGI punch fest, and they have a moment of forgiveness, and it completes the arc that Bucky Barnes has been on. He's been on a clear character arc this whole time, and it's about to have a poignant and an incredible climax in this movie where he comes into his own as a hero. He's not a spy anymore. He's not just a soldier anymore. He's not somebody that people use. He comes into his own, and he finds forgiveness, and he forgives himself, and he takes up the mantle and moves forward into this universe. I'm talking about this movie, not just the future movies. He's more interesting to me. I don't care about Scarlet Witch.
It could work. I don't disagree with that. But the problem is, I think we both know, and I think we both can agree on, they're not going to focus on that because they've got a pretty big CGI battle, as you alluded to with Thanos, that they're not even – we don't even know if Iron Man and Captain America are even going to be in the same scene in this movie. So if they're not even going to be together, then there's no point to even explore that relationship between the three of them, because one's going to be halfway across the world, the other two are going to be in Wakanda. So we have not even the slightest clue if that's even going to be resolved at all. So in that case, then there's no point to even, process the thought of what could possibly happen unless Captain America gets killed, which I hope to God doesn't happen. But you talked about, mindless, CGI battle. Let's not compare Avengers Infinity War to X-Men 3: The Last Stand, shall we? Let's not go that far. I'd hate to do that. And to me, Thanos is a great character that has not been explored, and that's what makes him so interesting. The same exact reason why Scarlet Witch is interesting to me, because we have not yet explored the full potential of what that character can be. And and I do mean if that character is capable of stopping Thanos to even a small degree, then that is much more than what many of the other Avengers can do. Do we really think Hawkeye can stop Thanos? No. Do we really think, Winter Soldier can stop Thanos? No. He just gets shot with a beam and then he's gone. It's that simple. To me, Scarlet Witch is a more interesting character to me because of what she can potentially bring to Infinity War. Other movies, I'm not worried about other movies. I want to see what they're going to do in Infinity War first. And to me, Winter Soldier to me is kind of just being thrown in there because.
That is time on the fight, but Jeremy, you are first when it comes to closing, so go ahead.
I mean, I think I pretty much alluded to everything about Winter Soldier. I mean, he's had a great run of story arc. I just don't know how much is to be, continuing in this movie. And in order to be a lead part in Infinity War, you would have to have that arc explored. And without Iron Man and Captain America in the same scene, it's kind of irrelevant to even do and even try. Whereas Scarlet Witch, it's possible, based on what we saw in the trailers, being that she's with a Vision at some point in the trailer, that there is something that can be gained with Scarlet Witch as a main character in the movie. Obviously, with potential that Vision is killed, and everything that they tease between her and Vision in Civil War can potentially increase her potential and value as a as a lead character in Infinity War, and there's many different possibilities that they can go with her. Whereas Winter Soldier, it's really pretty much one thing. There's one thing that he can do, and if he doesn't do it, then it's pretty much irrelevant, and then there's no point to even have him as a main point. So I think the possibility for Scarlet Witch as a lead role in Infinity War is endless, where there's pretty much just one thing that Bucky Barnes as Winter Soldier can do, and if they don't do it, then it's pointless.
What's that one thing? I'm just
redeeming the story arc between Rogers and Stark. I mean, if they're not in the same scene together, then there's no point to even continue it.
All right,
yes.
And Isaac, go ahead and go in for closing.
Once again, the question is what should happen. It's not about what will happen or even what they're going to do. What should happen. This is what should happen. You said that he has one thing to do. Yes, have a great character moment. That's what Avengers. That's what Marvel can do once in a while, is have great character moments. And this is a character I care about. You said he only has one thing to do. I disagree. I agree that Scarlet Witch only has one thing to do, and that's the same thing she did when her brother, whatever, his Silver something, when he died, she did this, and all the villains died. Quicksilver. Yeah, that's it. She screamed and her powers went nuts and nobody knows what happened, but they won. That's what she is. She's not a character. She's a plot device. And that's what annoys me. Like you said, I'm interested in her character. I don't know what character to be interested in with her. I don't know what her character is. And you're right. They should explore that, but don't give time to develop a character that we don't know about in a new movie. Finish developing the ones you have. You have an incredible arc here. Finish it off. This is what should happen. Completes the redemption arc. Has an important moment. Scarlet Witch, sure, defeat Thanos. Then let's explore her. But she's a plot device so far. I don't want to spend a lot of time wasted concentrated on developing her when we have characters that are coming to their end that we need to spend time on now. Also, I will bet money right now that Tony Stark and Captain America have a scene together. That just has to happen. It's going to happen. But once again, question is should, and what should happen is Bucky Barnes move to a starring role.
Okay, so once again, another great fight, guys. Just to clarify, because at the end there's a little bit of semantics over the writing of the question. The exact writing of the question is, which supporting Avengers character deserves a leading role in the ensemble for Avengers Infinity War? So that is the exact semantics. So you can argue what will happen based off of trailer and previous movies. You can argue what should happen. You can argue both angles, so they're both valid. In terms of the arguments, like I said, you guys did take two similar approaches, but obviously different because you have different characters. Isaac talked mostly about the fact that he has a previously set up story arc that ties into major players already in the film, and that it would make sense to try and tie that up and create some emotional sense within the movie, something that maybe previous MCU films have missed a little bit. Jeremy talking about Scarlet Witch, he talked mostly about the powers that she has, and how we haven't really seen the full possibility of those powers and how those can play into them fighting Thanos. So you guys both took story approaches, you just took two different angles on it. In terms of the hitbacks against each other, Jeremy talked about how this story may not necessarily have room in a big bulky film like Avengers Infinity War, and in terms of the actual film itself, he's not a character that can fight Thanos one-on-one, so it may not make sense to have him there in a major player role, and that you can kind of almost tie his bits up after Infinity War and other films. Whereas Isaac argued against Scarlet Witch about how the previous films have not done much to make her an interesting character that we'd want to follow. The final battle that she'd be involved in is only one moment of the film, and that she has one, even though her powers are unlimited now, we've only seen one type of power set that she has, and that she's been used more as a plot device than a character, and it wouldn't make sense to try and enhance her now. Wait till after the movie and enhance her then. So again, it's similar to the third round. You guys take very similar approaches to the argument. It's just a matter of how you present it and how you're saying it in. And Jeremy did have me for a lot of the fight. Because he does make a lot of sense in terms of how the character could quite physically, literally be involved in that final fight. And that makes a lot of sense, and that is a sensible argument. I think Isaac did a good enough job at rebuttaling that, though. So then it came down to the emotional. And both of you guys did present emotional points to it. Isaac presented the idea of Bucky tying up his storyline with Captain America and Iron Man, and Jeremy presented the idea of Scarlet Witch tying in with Vision, who, again, we don't have anything confirmed, but going based off assumption, Vision has a stone in his head. We kind of know what's coming, and you can tie her in emotionally there. Jeremy never really built off that point, though, and both of these guys did focus their argument on one thing, and because of that, I think Isaac did a better job rebuttaling Jeremy's main focus than Jeremy did Isaac's, so I'm going to give Isaac the point on that one. With that, we are moving into the speed round. The current score is 3-1. So here's how it works. In order to win, Jeremy would have to sweep all three of these questions in order to win. Isaac at this point only has to win one question in order for him to win the match. Like I said previously, the first two speed rounds are going to work with a time limit of 30 seconds and then 15 seconds. If we get to the final question with a score of 3-3, you'll have 3 moments to talk at 30 seconds, 20 seconds, and then 10 seconds. Are there any questions, guys?
Yeah, that's good.
Yep, good.
All right. So for the first speed round question, this one is a bit of an open-ended one, so you guys will have a little bit of time to think about the answer. What is the best second movie in an action franchise?
I'll say Expendables 2.
Okay. So Jeremy answered Expendables 2.
Oh my
All
gosh.
Right, so
The Raid 2.
The Raid 2. Okay.
Is it franchise?
Yep. There are 2 films. There's The Raid, and I believe it's pronounced called The Raid Barenthal. I may have mispronounced that.
Yeah. In the foreign. Yeah.
But there are 2 Raid films. That is a franchise. Okay. So we're gonna have Jeremy going first with the Expendables 2, Isaac with The Raid 2. Jeremy, you have 30 seconds on the clock. Time starts once you begin speaking.
Expendables 2 took everything that the first Expendables did, and they doubled down on it. They added even more cast, more action heroes, and brought in Jean-Claude Van Damme as the villain. Chuck Norris, who nobody ever thought would be back in film, they brought him in for great cameo appearances. Brought in all the great cast, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Bruce Willis, all that. Great action scenes, current storylines that were still relevant even today. Makes it a great watch even now. So much action, so much humor, and all that makes it great to even view. And repeat viewings even at that.
All right. Good job, Isaac. You have 30 seconds on the clock when you begin speaking.
The Raid 2 is everything a second action movie should do in a franchise. It takes what was done in the first one and expands upon it. The first one's a great action movie. This is a great action movie and story. It's The Departed meets a kung fu movie. It's complex. It's interesting. The characters are great. The fight scenes are the best ever put to film. Acting's fantastic. Expendables 2 isn't better. It doesn't build on anything in the first one. It waters it down. There's not an edge to it. It's less interesting. Worse fight scenes. Worse action. The Raid 2 steps up. The Expendables 2 falls down. And you saw it.
Time. All right. Jeremy, 15 seconds on the clock when you begin speaking.
I disagree that Expendables 2 wasn't better. I think it absolutely was better. I think it told a better story with all the elements of whether if it was worth it to be a hero or not. All the action, all the elements that they brought together made it great. All the actors came together with great chemistry. Chuck Norris blowing up tanks.
All right, and Isaac, 15 seconds on the clock when you begin speaking.
The Raid 2 is complex and interesting and a better action movie. Expendables 2 wasn't better. It wasn't a story. It wasn't a cameo. The first one was an actual real movie. This one was just an extended excuse to blow things up. It was a video game. It wasn't a story.
All right. Great arguments from both of you guys there. I think I'm going to lean towards Jeremy on this one just because he got a little more specific with the good parts about his movie. I think Isaac had a good opening with that 30 seconds, but Jeremy was able to name a little more specific moments from the movie. He was able to name the ensemble cast that came with it. He just got a little more out there, I think, in the time given. So I'm going to give the point to him. Definitely a tough question, though. Definitely something that probably could have a bigger fight in the future. I like that one.
I'm just curious,
right, so
but Rush Hour 2 have counted?
Yes, because that's action comedy.
Should have picked that instead.
All right. Here we go. So the second question, just because this is something that's been in the news recently and it relates to all sorts of different themes going on, this is kind of an either-or question. I'm going to read you the question and give you the two options. First person to say the option they want is going to go first on that option. Right?
Wait, I'm sorry. Could you
Who
repeat
is... Yes. Yeah, no, you're fine. So basically, I'm going to read you the question, and there will be two options. Whichever person says their option first is going to go argue first. The other person is with the other option.
Gotcha.
Okay. Who is the better choice for James Bond, Daniel Craig or Idris Elba?
Craig.
Yeah, I'll do Elba.
Okay. Jeremy went first with Daniel Craig. Idris Elba is for Isaac. Once again, Jeremy, you have 30 seconds on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Elba's still pretty much a complete unknown. Daniel Craig, for better or worse, still has 4 additional movies before him to build on. They actually added emotional content to it, makes you actually embrace the character already. You know, bringing him in for a 5th movie would actually add to that instead of take it away. Elba, you know, while I think he could be a great Bond, complete element of unknown. We have no idea what he can actually bring. James Bond, Daniel Craig, to me, I've already personified as James Bond. Skyfall is one of the greatest Bond movies ever made. And, you know, Spectre, I think, is actually a good movie. All
right, Isaac, 30 seconds on the clock for Idris Elba when you begin speaking.
We've already seen what Daniel Craig brings to the role of Bond, and it's the same thing he's done in the last 3 movies, and it's time to move on. He's even ready to be done with it. He's bored of it. He wants to cut his wrists if he ever plays Bond again. He literally said that. Elba is what people are claiming for. It's new. It's interesting. He's unknown. Are you kidding me? Everyone knows who Idris Elba is. I think he's better known than Daniel Craig is. Also, representation matters, and it's time to have Idris Elba step into the role. It's time to mix it up a little bit. It's time for the male white Bond to move on.
Time.
Let's do something new.
All right. Jeremy, you have 15 seconds on the clock when you begin speaking.
Unknown as Bond, that's what I was clarifying about. You know, obviously he's a great actor. Nobody can deny that. But Daniel Craig has a slew of great movies. Casino Royale, one of the best movies ever made. Skyfall, best movie ever made. Many people already put him on par with Sean Connery, who many people consider to be the best Bond.
All right, Isaac, I'll give you an extra 2 seconds there because he did go a little bit over. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Craig is nowhere near Sean Connery. He's not as good. His last movie sucked. It's time for something new. Idris Elba will bring something new to it. People want this, and even Daniel Craig doesn't want this. He wants to do new, interesting indie thing. It's time to give Elba a blockbuster film, and Bond is it.
Time. All right, good arguments from both of you guys. Both of you kind of argued and counter-argued the point of Daniel Craig has already been Bond, so we know what we're going to get. Jeremy obviously argued the more positive side of things. Isaac argued the more negative side of things. But for this one, I am going to give the point to Isaac because Isaac argued where Idris Elba could be a good, refreshing thing stepping in. Jeremy didn't really touch on Idris Elba all that much, so I didn't get much counter against it. And so because of that, I am going to have to give Isaac the point, which means Isaac does get the victory here today on a 4-2 score and is moving on to the next round of the tournament.
Good match.
Thank you. Good
match. Yeah. The first thing to say again is, despite the score, this was a really good match, especially towards the end. Those last 2 rounds and those 2 speed rounds, you guys really kicked it up and picked it up a notch. And that portion of the match is some of the best fighting that I've seen in movie Battleground. Both of you guys did a really good job today. We'll go ahead first and go to Jeremy here, who is unfortunately out of the tournament now because of this match. Jeremy, how you feeling, man?
Well, I did as best as I could. I mean, obviously, I felt proud about some of those rounds that I won. Although the 2 that I really wanted to have were the 2 that I lost, round 1 and round 3. I thought I did a really good job debating them. unfortunately didn't go my way. But I can still build a lot off this. I think my 1-2 record doesn't really, say how good a debater that I am. And there's always another day. I think a little bit more time, just try to watch a few more movies, try to get more knowledge about movie in general. I think I'll be a better player even with a loss today.
Most definitely, and we'll definitely see you back in the future after the tournament. But with that, we'll move on to Isaac, who is the victor today. Actually, let me get a break real fast so I can pull up the bracket and talk about that.
Oh yeah, it's true.
I do want to say genuinely, both of you guys did a good job.
Yeah, it was very good. I was feeling it. I actually thought I had lost that one.
And no, after, because I have another match recording after this. After that, I'm going to start looking at players who don't have matches, seeing potential setups. So, Jeremy, you'll definitely be getting somebody once we get back into the normal run of things.
How many rounds are left in the first round? How many matches are left in the first round?
How many matches?
Yeah.
Well, today I'm recording you guys, and I'm recording Greg versus Asher. After this match, I'm going to reach out to get the setup going on Zach Ford versus Chris Dohmen. And then besides you three, it's Jeremy Adams versus myself and Luca Fallon versus Linus Babcock. And then that's it.
Oh my gosh, what a match. Luca versus Linus.
Yeah, he fell into that match. We had all sorts of, because that was originally, the person playing Linus was a qualifier match, and that one started out as Mark Borge versus Drake Fremsdorf, and then Mark backed out because of things going on in worldwide movie games as a whole. And then Drake had personal stuff come up, and he just said, because we were supposed to record the match, he didn't want to delay the match, so he just chose to back out as a whole. And because it was a qualifier to play, we had already slotted Luca in to play Drake.
Oh, I got you.
Because there was a misunderstanding there with his match.
Yeah.
So then we just decided to move Luca in. So he's going to play Linus.
What a match! That's
that'll certainly.
That's a championship match right there in the first round. That's nuts.
I'll be interested to see how Luca does, because there was the misunderstanding there between. I thought Luca needed to back out for a while, but he only needed just that title match off. So when we realized we had an opening, I gave him the option. I reached out to him and I said, because of the whole misunderstanding here, I said, you have one of two options. You can take our open slot and play into the tournament, or our next title match, which was set to be the champion, who is now Evan, taking on the winner of the tournament. Taking on the winner of the tournament, I will give you a seat in that match automatically. So it'll be Evan versus Luca versus whoever wins. And he chose play through the tournament instead.
Gotcha.
So he forfeited an automatic title shot to play. So I'm interested to see if he's going to really bring it.
I think he
wants it.
What to do.
Yeah, I know he enjoys playing every time he's played, and he hasn't had a chance in a while. So I think it may be just he really wants to play. But it'll certainly be interesting. All right, so I do have it up. So yeah, you'll be playing the winner of Ford versus Dohmen.
Okay.
But I'll set that up for the post-match thing. All right, here we go. All right, and with that, we're going to move on and talk to our winner of today's match, Isaac Horvat. Isaac, you win today's match, which means you move on with a record of 3-1 with 1 knockout. Definitely, definitively one of the best players we have in the league right now. How are you feeling after today's match?
Relieved, tired. It was a hard-fought match. All respect to Jeremy. He definitely gave me a good fight. It feels good to come off of a loss and get the win. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes I get caught up in things that happen in the match, and I don't think forward. And I got to do better at that. But right now, I'm trying to just appreciate this win and move forward. That said, I really want a shot at our cardboard king, our champion right now, Evan. I really want that match. So just because I'm feeling a little bit like I won this match, that's where my eyes are eventually looking for. And believe me, I will still not want to share answers when I face them.
All right, and actually going off that point, I want to ask, obviously players aren't required to share answers, but 99% of competitors feel more comfortable sharing answers. You are the only competitor who is, unless you absolutely have to because of picking answer reasons like with today's match on question 2,
right,
you're the only competitor who has not wanted to share answers at any point during his run of 4 matches. Do you think that plays into any sort of strategy against your opponents in a way that helps you? Because you have a record of 3-1 with a knockout. So it's certainly done something.
Yeah, no, I absolutely attribute that strategy to it. And it's something that coming into this league I wanted to employ because I'm confident in my knowledge of film, and I'm confident even more in my ability to just
Hold up,
make
Isaac.
up stuff.
Just 1 second.
Well, that was abrupt and sudden.
It was.
At least what this match did prove, no admin bias.
Right. There was no admin bias. It is funny how like you focus on things that you should have won versus things you should have lost.
Yeah.
It's funny. I actually agree with you though. Like I thought you won. I thought you won question 4 and question. What was it 1? I want to think.
I thought I had to do the 2 animated rounds, especially round 3. I really thought I had round 3.
All right, sorry about that, guys. All right, I'll restart with the question. All right, so 3, 2. All right, and actually building off your last statement there, you're the only competitor that we've had that has consistently chosen not to want to share answers. Now, obviously, it's not a requirement in the game, but generally everybody feels more comfortable doing it. Do you think that plays into that strategy plays into your victories?
Absolutely. What you just said, players are comfortable doing it, and they're uncomfortable when they don't know what's coming. That's why people struggle with the speed round, and coming into this league, I knew that was a strategy I wanted to employ, mainly because I'm confident in my knowledge of film, but I'm more confident in my ability to ad-lib and come up with things on the spot and make stuff up and really engage in that aspect of things. I love debate. I love impromptu. That was one of my favorite things in school to do, an impromptu speech and just go for it. And I know that a lot of people don't like that. So my strategy is to do that. So, and I think you saw it in one of my matches where one of my films, the competitor, I forget who it was. It might have been Malcolm, hadn't seen the movie, so he wasn't sure how to attack me. And then there's
I remember that first match with Malcolm.
Right, and then to counter that, and I'm not trying to say it, but like when in my match with forget who it was, but it was a Muppets question. I've never seen a Muppets movie in my life, but I immediately just started like figuring things out. Yeah, it was Linus. That's right.
I think it was Linus because you guys both had a knockout.
Which I agree. Muppets over South Park.
No, but yeah, I'd never seen a Muppets movie, so I was just like making stuff up off the top of my head, and that's where my strength is. And absolutely, I think that's a strategy, and it's one I continue to try to use for sure.
Okay, and with that, like we said, obviously, because we are in the tournament, you are moving on to the second round now, and your next opponent, we don't have the match finished yet, obviously, because it hasn't been uploaded, but your next match is going to be the winner of Zach Ford versus Chris Dohmen. Now, Zach enters this match 1-2. Solo victory is a knockout, and his 2 losses come in a triple threat in which he helped knock out Andrew Hayes. And his first match was a loss to Jeremy Adams, who was previously a title contender and one of the top seeds in the league. Mm-hmm. So he definitely has a record that holds him up. Dohmen enters this match with a 2-0 record after holding over 2 victories in the extended Star Wars match we had. So going into this match, who do you think is going to be the winner, and who would you rather see in the next round?
I forget who I picked in my bracket. They're both good. They both know their stuff. The record doesn't speak to Ford's ability for sure. It for sure doesn't reflect the talent that he has. So either one of them would be an opponent that I would certainly take seriously. Who do I think will win? I don't know. It's going to be a toss up. I'm giving the edge a little bit to the underdog. Because I think I've seen it here before where somebody has a losing record and they know they're better than that. And I think Jeremy will be the next person that when they know they're better than that, they come out swinging and they get the victory over somebody 2-0 in a Star Wars match. That's a specialty match. It's not discounting it, but at the same time, this is movie Battleground. It's more about it's a whole world of film. It's not just about Star Wars. So I'm interested to see how Dohmen handles that. And I do think the underdog, I give an edge to the hunger there.
Definitely. All right. And then would Zach be the player you'd rather see?
I don't care who I see.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Bring him up. I'll knock him down.
Fair enough, Isaac. Guys, and with that, this has been an extremely fun match. Thank you guys for joining us and watching this match. We'll go once again around with the competitors. Jeremy, up first. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at WWEJTH1, and you can find me on YouTube, JTH. And now you can, as you alluded to earlier, you can find me on the Movie Battleground page as an administrator, which, by the way, this match proved no admin biased.
Yeah, most definitely. Look, I'm just saying, obviously because of other reasons this match fell through, but our one defense against admin bias is we had Subrath and Matt competing in an elimination match. We don't have admin bias.
No.
Most certainly don't. Or we try not to in most cases. Isaac, go ahead with your plugs, man. Where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Filmer2013. I'm on YouTube, Film Freak Show. If you do the YouTube channel, I do streaming, game streaming. Right now, I've been playing a lot of PUBG. I'm eventually going to start playing some other games that I've never played before, just as an experiment. I'll be hanging around the movie Battlegrounds, talking crap about Evan, and looking forward to the next match.
I think a lot of people are hanging around movie Battleground talking crap about Evan. Hey, man.
It's an easy target.
Definitely. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Aaron T. Knoll. That's about all the social media that I have. If you guys are not a part of the Movie Battleground Facebook page, obviously we are not accepting new competitors now, but post-tournament, we're going to be looking to bring some new faces in and get some new matches going. So if you're not a part of the page, you can't be a part of that. If you guys are not subscribed to the Worldwide Movie Games Network channel that this match is on, along with matches from Full Metal Trivia, and there will be trivia, please subscribe, hit that bell, follow us. If you guys are not a part of the Worldwide Movie Games Network page, which promotes all the stuff that we have and other things involving the admins from the different leagues, go ahead and join that. Again, just the more involved you are in the community, the more your name is known, the more likely you are to get a match in the near future. With the exception of Full Metal Trivia, all of the different ones are in tournaments right now, so it's going to be a bit harder to get a match. But if you guys enter on right now and take part in Full Metal Trivia and make your name known there, that's going to make it easier to get into. There will be trivia. It'll probably make it easier to get into a Movie Battleground match because people will know who you are, and it makes it a little bit easier to get in there. So definitely being a part of the pages and being a part of the different leagues and supporting everybody is, the best way to make all of this grow. Obviously, follow and support all the other admins: Evan Graff, Jeremy Hastings, Linus Babcock, Matt Beer, Happy Birthday Man, Robert Parker, and Subrath Sharma. And that is it, guys. My name is Aaron Knoll, and for Movie Battleground. Fuck that up. All right, Matt. One more edit cut. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. My name is Aaron Knoll. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.